Let us talk, shall we, about June 15th, 1984, and part of the Four Kings series, a tremendous, booming timber knockout for Thomas Hitman Hearns over Roberto Duran. 1984, smack in the middle of the prime of Hearns' career. Duran, a shocking, devastating, booming punch. Big Dan, tell me more about how this got set into motion and it ended quickly.
I'm going to say the end part first. Tommy Hearns, Roberto Duran, Sugar Ray Leonard, and Marvin Hagler fought a combined 9 times. The Four Kings round robin that carried the 1980s in boxing. And this is the singular most spectacular punch and knockout of those 9 fights. An absolutely
Yep.
sensational, one of the great knockouts in boxing history against an opponent in Duran who was known as a indomitable type of figure with a great chin, who had been in the ring with lots of top guys. And yeah, he had been stopped by Sugar Ray Leonard, but that was the no mas fight. It wasn't like he was hurt and knocked down or knocked out. So just a shocking scene. But in terms of the fight itself, you have Tommy Hearns, who is at that time he's the junior middleweight world champion. He has the WBA, or I'm sorry, Duran. I saved that back. Duran is the WBA junior middleweight champion.
Right.
He had been ordered to fight Mike McCallum, who was passing, was recent. And we talked about many times over the years that Mike McCallum was a great fighter, but never got the opportunity to fight any of the big four because they avoided him. This is one of those classic examples. Duran was supposed to be in a position to be defending the title against Mike McCallum, and he decided, you know what, I'm taking a pass on that because he got a much better offer, presumably a much better offer. To fight against Tommy Hearns was a much, much bigger name. So they did the fight at the famed Caesar's Palace
Do
in
you
Las Vegas.
remember this part? I don't know. I'm going to jog you maybe.
Yeah.
From the Four Kings documentary on Showtime. Tremendous job by Matt Whitecross, our buddy that we had on this pod several years ago when they did that. And I believe I have the gospel here on this. I think it was this fight. Duran was iffy about fighting Hearns in the first place. And so the promoters that were involved, whoever it was, somebody was trying to lure him. And Duran said, I want you to guarantee me $1 million right now, and I want $1 million by tomorrow, and I'll sign. And this is Duran saying this in the documentary. And whoever it was said, I cannot have a million. How are you going to go get $1 million cash, whatever? Cashier's check, Raphael, I don't know. Casino tokens, I don't know what you would do. But they supposedly got him
Right.
a half million in 24 hours
So
to secure him to go fight this fight. That's wild to make
most
sure
of
he got
the
his.
most of the fights with the Four Kings, you know, were promoted by Top Rank.
Yeah.
This one, for whatever the reason, and I don't know the reason, I'd have to dig up a little research. It doesn't come to me off the top of my head. It was not promoted by Top Rank. It was promoted by the trio of Shelley Saltman, Walter Alvarez, and an outfit called Golden Circle Productions. Originally, the fight was supposed to take place in Nassau in the Bahamas. Matter of
Interesting.
fact, and I don't have this in my collection, but it exists. There's posters and advertising for that fight in the Bahamas, which I would love to get my hands on for my collection. But in the end, I guess this was the reason they gave. Who knows if it's true because it's boxing. There was like a shortage of hotel rooms in the Bahamas to accommodate what they expected to be a large crowd. And eventually it was moved to Caesar's Palace where they had 14, 15,000 where they
Right.
built this, the stadium out back to put this fight in where so many of the great fights had happened, like Hagler and Hearns and Hagler and Leonard and others. So they put the fight in Vegas. The fight happens. And like I said, Tommy Hearns is the champion defending the WBC's junior middleweight title. He is at that point, like you said, he had lost, of course, to Sugar Ray Leonard, but he's in
Mm-hmm.
his, I guess you would say he's in his prime at that point. Would you say that? I
Yes,
mean, was the case?
absolutely. He's in his
So
late 20s. Yes.
yeah, he's not like a shot fighter. This is probably, he had beaten Benavidez, Wilfred Benitez in 1982. And so he's coming into this fight as champion and he puts on, I said, he fought all the guys in that round robin. This was his one win, and he did so in one of the most memorable ways you could do so. He scored 2 knockdowns in the first round.
Can we just address Duran fought a totally stupid wrong fight?
Oh
He
yeah,
just
totally.
came right at Thomas Hearns and was almost asking for a war, a shootout. against a guy who's best known for I'm gonna bomb you if you give me the opportunity. He fought the
And he
wrong
did
fight
that.
in the opening round. He fought the wrong fight.
I think he went, if I'm not mistaken, my recollection, he went back to tried to go back to the wrong corner after the first round because he was
Yeah.
up. He
Yes.
got knocked down twice. And again, Duran was known for having a great chin. And then he came out in the second round and, with a minute and a half or whatever it was into the round, as my friend TJ likes to say, boom goes the dynamite. Tommy Hearns landed the fastball right hand. Like there's the levels. Tommy always had a great right hand. There's levels of the right hand. He landed the perfect best. It might be the best right hand that he ever landed, except perhaps when he knocked out Pepino Cuevas to win the welterweight title. But he landed the right hand on the chin, and Duran went down face first. Plate ole. Now, amazingly, and he was gone. The fight was over. Duran actually did get up.
Incredibly.
It was like he was in another dimension.
He was back he was back in Panama.
That is correct. So
at that point, mentally,
that was a devastating knockout. And just to put it in the context of where we are in the timeline of the Four Kings, after that fight was over, he came back a few months later. He had another title defense against Fred Hutchings, and then it was in April of '85. So you're talking about 10 months after this knockout. That's when the legendary fight with Marvin Hagler happened, and obviously Tommy had moved up to middleweight and lost by a knockout. In the most spectacular action short fight maybe in boxing history. But the knockout against Duran was just absolutely
devastating. It is the signature KO. Yes, the Cuevas KO. And Hearns had a couple of other national television knockouts back in the day. Because remember, he fought on network TV several times on NBC network TV in the United States, on CBS TV in the United States. But this was closed circuit, obviously, and a destruction of Duran with that punch.
One other thing about that.
Yeah.
This fight between Duran and Hearns was really, I mean, even though Duran fought a million more times and was still seen on some of the top broadcasts and this and that, this was his last significant fight for several years. He was considered at this point kind of like a done fighter. So we're talking 1984. It was 5 years later when he fought Iran Barkley.
Yeah.
That was the next sort of big fight he had. That was his next world title fight. And he pulled the humongous upset by moving, in the middleweight division and beating Barkley in a classic legendary fight. That was really the last big win of his career.
And if I'm not mistaken, that's after Barkley, because we just recently had the anniversary and talked about Iran Barkley beating Thomas Hearns. So it's all cyclical because Barkley had beaten Hearns.
Yep.
And now Duran, 5 years later, is able to beat Iran Barkley after being knocked out by Hearns. But unforgettable night. If you are a fan of the Motor City Cobra, the Kronk, Jim, Emmanuel Stewart, that is as signature.
Or just the Four Kings.
Or the Four Kings. But I mean, for the Detroit, Motown boxing fans, that is the signature moment, probably. That knockout of Roberto Duran by Thomas Hearns. It was that big of a deal. Anything else as part of the Four Kings lore?
Well, I collect the memorabilia from the Four Kings fights. One of the things that still remains on my want list is a nice full mint ticket from that fight. I have the poster. Beautiful poster, although it doesn't have the photos, it's just the names. It's classic Caesar's Palace poster. Have the program. The program, I will tell you, by the way, they're around. You can find them, but to find them in mint condition is virtually fucking impossible. I have one that looks like it looks like it came off the press yesterday. And the reason, because it's got an all black cover, and because of the color of the cover, it shows every single scuff mark, every ding, every dent that there is. But I'm very happy to have one. It's an increasingly more expensive program.
This is why I love you on the memorabilia and all the nostalgia. You taught me on this nostalgic episode. I did not know the fight was supposed to be in the Bahamas.
Oh yeah.
But it ended up being at Caesar's Palace, and Hearns put Duran on Pluto.
And Duran had
knocked him out.
He had ducked McCallum to take the fight,
and he couldn't duck that right hand that night in Las Vegas.